Hey, I'm Terence.
And I'm Deb, and today we're going to talk about doing something different. Have you ever started a year and thought, you have grand plans and you want to do something different, and then before you know it, December rolls around and nothing has been done? Or have you ever been stirred up to, want to make a difference? For example, I want to spend more time with my family, I want to eat more healthily, and then it starts off well, maybe for first 2 weeks, and then it dwindles down and nothing happens. You go back to square one.
Yeah, so generally there are basically three trigger points that would actually motivate someone to do something different or drastically change a habit or an action. So the first one would be usually tragedies. So tragedies like death or a sickness. Sometimes these things will actually spur someone to make really drastic change in their lives. The second thing would be being inspired by a certain experience or exposure or through somebody, and then you take that exposure and experience and change. But the third trigger point, which is I think the hardest, would be self-actualization. So like how sometimes you read something or you realize something, you say, oh yeah, I need to change the way I speak to my boss, or the way I need to change to speak to my wife, right? But self-actualization is usually, in our opinion, is the hardest trigger point to actually make a lasting change or make lasting difference in our lives.
Maybe you can share your own experience, a personal story of how you have made a change.
Yeah, so I think back in 2013, late 2013, 2014, we felt that we needed to grow. Then we make that intentional effort to actually move abroad. And we lived in Cambodia, and we stepped out from Kuala Lumpur, and we moved. Some of you know our story, and we moved to Cambodia and stayed there for 2 years without a vehicle. We only had a motorbike. Seth, our son, was only 1 year old, so it was a completely different experience altogether. And we grew individually. We grew as a family. Our relationship got closer by a million miles, right? So. How about you? Do you have any stories or one story perhaps to share with everyone?
I think it was the year that we started a family, and Seth came into our lives. But I knew that I needed to grow personally, and especially actually in the area of writing. And so this, Terence challenged me to, hey, why don't you write a book? And I thought, hey, what a good opportunity to grow in that area. But at the same time, it was also a very daunting idea. So, it's crazy to suddenly think of yourself as an author putting together a book. But I decided to take on the challenge. And with a baby in tow, I personally set aside time in a week, consistently for a few weeks, to actually pen down chapters of the book. And then actually in 9 full months, Live to Last was birthed. So it was quote unquote my second baby after Seth. And so I think when it comes to doing something different, I think what's important is to first have a plan, and two, to have someone accountable. And so in my case, it was Terence. He was accountable for my growth at that time.
There's this book that I really want to recommend. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he said, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Getting 1% better every day counts for a lot in the long run. And I think sometimes we always want to change, and the change we want to happen tomorrow. But the truth is, triggers of 1% or small increments are even actually more important than the end goal itself. Because if you can daily change just 1% or regularly change 1%, you eventually reach to your goal. Yeah, so I think the question that we want to pose to both you and us is, what is one thing that you really want to develop, and what are some processes that you're going to put in place, right, to form that habit or form that action, right? So thank you. See ya.
See ya.